or I'm going to speak on that topic. And it's all for free. And other people over time would recognize me as being someone who knew a lot about this narrow area of law. And I had no idea I was doing content marketing. But to me, that's a highly respectable way of doing it. You learn a lot. That's how I learned family law, because I didn't know about this practice area. And I just figured, well, if I volunteer to speak at a conference, I'm going to look like an idiot if I don't really know this subject. So I just studied whatever I was speaking about. Yeah. And so I think that should be in everyone's comfort zone. It's not easy, but no one's going to criticize a lawyer for publishing an article or speaking at a conference on something. And so if they get beyond their fear of doing it, it is a fantastic way to market yourself.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Which actually leads then into the fact that you have had these talks and you have these papers and these articles really gives you all of the content that you need to use on LinkedIn. Isn't that right?
Well, yeah. And you've helped me with that and just seeing how that could be processed. And that's kind of the next level. And Gary Vee has some great videos about this. And basically, it's taking this content and using it across several channels in different ways. And so before, I would just recycle. If I had an article, I'd publish it in one place, and then I would try and get it published in several other places, or do the same speech for several different organizations. But at a bigger scale, we could be using that 1 hour speech and dicing it up into many different segments and putting it onto YouTube as several minute videos. We could be putting an article out there. We could be using it as LinkedIn posts. We could just take that content and dice it up and repurpose it probably 30 different ways.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time. And what I found is we need help with that. I just can't. I can't produce the content, think about it, execute on it, and then take the new clients in and handle the cases and manage the business. It's too much. So at my firm, we have a full-time marketing director who helps us with that stuff, but we could probably use 2 full-time people to do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So how do you decide? So if we look at LinkedIn now, Chris, how do you decide who to connect with and how to build a network on LinkedIn? Because, you're talking about the people that hire you. For example, I know that you have worked with some Hollywood celebrities, marriage breakups, right? We can say that in the podcast, can't we? Yeah. And I don't think those people are finding you on LinkedIn. So how do you decide who you're connecting with and what network to build that leads people to reach out to work with you?
Yeah, this was not intuitive. So when I started working with Peter in this divorce practice, he said, well, all his business comes from other divorce lawyers. And it's like, well, how could that be? Why would another divorce lawyer send work to you?
Yes.
And I just figured, well, you get work from a client. Well, we don't. We don't get work from clients. Maybe every once in a while. But we get work from other divorce lawyers. And that's key to understanding before we dive in too much into LinkedIn is, first of all, like you're saying, where do we get our clients from? So I look at it as almost like a first responder concept. So the client has an immediate need for a lawyer. If they're wealthy, they're going to reach out to the people in their immediate network. They may have a business lawyer or a business manager or a lawyer they knew from another type of case that they had. They're going to reach out to those folks first and saying, for example, hey, I'm getting divorced. I need a divorce lawyer in Los Angeles who's good. And they're going to task that person to find the lawyer. Wealthy person's not going to get on the internet and start doing their own research typically.
No.
So they're going to task the lawyer to do that. And the lawyer then reaches out to his or her network and saying, well, hey, I need a divorce lawyer in Los Angeles. They start prowling around, start asking their contacts ask their contacts, and then they start coming back with names. And my goal is to be on that short list.
Yes.
And so it's really the lawyers who are finding the lawyers for other people. And that makes perfect sense. Like if you wanted to see a medical specialist, you could go to the internet and start searching reviews and websites. But if you had a doctor you really trusted and saying like, hey, if you had this particular problem, who would you use? And they said, oh, yeah, no question, I'm going to use Dr. So-and-so.
Yes.
That referral is very powerful. Yeah. And to me, this is the way to market, because if we're marketing to clients, we have to find that client at the moment in time that they realize they need our services.
They need you.
And it's like, there's no way that that's going to coincide. But if we're marketing to other lawyers, they're going to hopefully remember us for their entire career. And so when they're called upon to find somebody in our niche, they're going to do it. So that, to me, is the key understanding, is saying, okay, who is our audience? Who are we marketing to? We're not marketing to clients. We're marketing to people who are going to refer the clients to us. And now we understand who we're going to target on LinkedIn.
You know, it's interesting because I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, actually, that's really where a big chunk of my business comes from as well. It's somebody who works in sales and marketing who reaches out to me because they've spoken to somebody else who says, oh, you need to speak to Louise Brogan. It's not that different. So, and one of the things I say to my customers and clients is, you know, don't just connect with people who you see as potential clients on LinkedIn, whatever industry you're in. Connect with people who work with the clients that you want as well, and they can refer you as the expert in your field. And it's really the same idea, isn't it?
It's amazing and counterintuitive. And early on, I was a member of this networking group, and we'd meet every month. And it was a big national organization, very well run. And so in my group, I was asked to join this group, and they already had a divorce lawyer. And it was a small territory that this group covered. And I'm like, well, they're already a divorce lawyer in this group. So I joined. They said, don't worry about it. So I said, okay. So I joined that. This other gentleman, Scott Clopert, great lawyer here in Los Angeles. And Scott and I ended up trading more business between the two of us than anyone else in the group that I got from anyone else in the group.
I love it. Now, one of the things you and I briefly talked about before we hit record, Chris, is that you are now super busy again, which means that you haven't had time to really look at your LinkedIn. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and that, you know, the difficulties that it's like you market and then you get really, really busy and then you stop marketing because you don't have time to market?
Yeah, I'm not happy about that, but I'll just share that what I've seen is with lawyers, and this is probably true of any service professional, is that when we're super busy, we just focus on doing the work.
Yeah.
And the marketing falls aside along with administration, everything else.
Yeah.
And then once we resolve all those matters and we're now looking for work, then we pour ourselves into marketing. And then we get a bunch of work and then go back to ignoring marketing. So really it's having consistency that matters. But what happened is that I did have that slow period in the end of March, April, and May that I was able to really pour 100% into marketing. And then once I learned the secret sauce and I was working the recipe, I brought in so much business. It was a ridiculous amount. I should pay you a commission.
Oh, all right then.
It was a ridiculous amount of work. So much that I couldn't even handle it. And I'm a very calm person, and I just figure, hey, I'm going to go do one thing at a time. I'm not going to do 4 things at a time. But I was honestly panicking a bit.
Wow.
It was too much. And so I had went before from being on LinkedIn multiple times a day, posting every day, to all of a sudden like, wow, I can't even get my work done. I can't even look at my LinkedIn right now. So I had to let it go for a bit. And I feel bad about that. But how I used LinkedIn, I think correctly with your help, makes it not a problem because I wasn't on there just blasting messages to people. I was building relationships with folks.
Yes.
And just like a friend that you may not have seen for a year, and you can meet that person and renew that connection immediately, I think I'm going to be able to do with these folks, because my goal there was not to market at them. It was to learn about their practice, use their content to help me understand the law better, build a relationship with them, use them as a resource for my clients when I needed to refer stuff to them, get to know them. And so my goal was to build a genuine relationship with these folks. And so the fact that I've been absent here for probably 6 weeks, I don't think is going to matter.
I absolutely agree with you. And it's so rewarding for me to hear how well you took on board everything that we worked on, but also that it was so successful for you. But I agree 100%. So I'll tell you, today I sent a message to somebody who I met at a Northern Ireland chamber, so a Northern Ireland wide chamber event. It must have been December because everything stopped in late January, early February. And I reached out to her today because she's changed jobs. And I said, how are things going? How's it going in a new job? And she said, she came back and she was so friendly because so few people actually work on those relationships on LinkedIn that when you do, people really remember it. And we have a call set up for next week. So 6 weeks is a blip in time on LinkedIn, I think, for those relationships. So that's super to hear. So and there will be lots of lawyers will be tuning into this episode, I know, because they're going to be really intrigued about LinkedIn and lawyers. So if there's somebody listening who's thinking, flip, I should really get on LinkedIn, what would be your top tips? Say like the couple of top tips you would give them about LinkedIn as a lawyer or as an attorney.
So first, before doing much on it, my top tip is knowing why you're doing it. And then it's easy to know how we're going to use it.
Yeah.
So the first part is whoever invented this know, trust, like, or KTL principle. And if listeners aren't aware of it, just Google it and you'll see it. And it is genius and it's absolutely true. But the reason why we get cases referred to us or not is because people know, trust, and like us. And it's the same reason why we would refer work to somebody else, is because we know, trust, and like them or not. And so there's plenty of people who we know and like, but don't really feel are competent enough to handle the matter that we need to refer out, or vice versa, that we know and trust that they could do a very good job, but they're just vile people and we wouldn't want to send anyone to them. So we need to have all three. So to me, that's a core foundational principle of marketing. And once we understand that, then we can go on to LinkedIn and saying, okay, we want to be known on LinkedIn. And so that's building our network and communicating with people in an effort to create trust around our competency, which is then by sharing our content and showing that we specialize in a particular area, providing great service to our clients. And then the likability factor is basically listening to them and using their content and communicating with them. It's a two-way street. It's not just blasting out a message. And so this is commenting on their content, engaging with them. And then they all of a sudden like us. And now we have the KTL intact with that relationship, and we just do it one by one. So the biggest tip, I would say, well, the easiest thing to do is not post, but engage.
Yes.
And so what I'm seeing a lot of people worry about on LinkedIn is like, how do I create the perfect post? And I've gone into that fallacy myself. And then I get the post out there and it's like, wow, no one's paying attention to this. And like, how do I get this thing going? And I'm watching and okay, I got a couple thumbs up, but nobody's commenting on it. It's like, wow, I spent all this time. I mean, a lot of time thinking about this lousy post and nobody cares. And then what I realized from that, and we've talked about this, is that we'll comment on other people's posts because other people in your network are also going through that same anxiety and effort and saying, okay, they've created some post, they think it's brilliant, they put it out there, and now they're watching like a hawk Who is going to comment on this? Well, if you're that person and you say like, and not just a thumbs up, because a thumbs up is nothing.
No, it's correct.